Well, let's stay on the federal election campaign trail now. And the Shadow Home Affairs Minister, James Patterson, joins us from Sydney. James, good morning.
Good morning, James.
Now, you are pledging $750 million on crime fighting today. Aren't these the sort of things that are best tackled by the states, not the Commonwealth?
Well, clearly Anthony Albanese has taken that attitude over the last 3 years, and look at where that has left us. Australians have never felt less safe than they do now, and we have weak Labor governments at the federal level and in some state levels as well, including in my home state of Victoria, and that's led to an outbreak of crime, an increase of crime. We don't accept that. We don't think that's adequate, and we're going to lead from the national level with this new package to make us communities safe again. It's absolutely critical that we give police the resources they need at the federal level to work with their state counterparts, particularly to tackle crime which is across the state borders and which is transnational in nature, like serious organised crime and drug trafficking.
Yeah, so some of this will go towards tackling illicit drugs. There's also a proposal for a national sex offender register. Has there been a specific case or incident that's led you to make this promise for a sex offender register?
This promise is based on a successful model that's worked in Western Australia and the United Kingdom. It is a disclosure scheme where a parent or a carer of a child has a right to apply to police to request whether someone who has access to their child is on the sex offender register, and police then make a judgment about whether or not that disclosure should be made. So it's significant inbuilt privacy protections. It's the judgment of police. But in the United Kingdom and Western Australia, it has resulted in the disclosure of information about sex offenders who had access to children, which has resulted in those children being safe where they might have not otherwise been.
What do you do then if the states say, no, we're not interested in helping you out with this program?
Well, Western Australia already has it, and South Australia has legislated to move towards it, but the people in the other states and territories of Australia deserve to have the same protections for their children. Unfortunately, we've seen high-profile examples where, for example, people working in childcare centres or in sporting clubs have had access to children who never should have had access to children, and parents, we think, have a right to know. If we're successful in earning a mandate for this at the federal election, we would hope that our states would work with us in order to protect children.
You will need them, though. I just wonder, will people look at your trailing position in the polls this morning, a day before early voting begins, and be a bit cynical about your pivot to being tough on crime today?
All I can assure them is that this is a plan that's been in the works for some time. We've been very carefully examining other models around the country and around the world to see what would work best, and we're responding to what our candidates are hearing in the field. You know, when candidates are out door knocking in the eastern suburbs of Melbourne, for example, Katie Allen, our candidate in Chisholm, or Manage Cello, our candidate in Aston, or indeed in the northern and western suburbs of Melbourne and right across Australia, they're hearing from their constituents that they feel less safe than ever before and they want federal leadership. When you've got carjackings and home invasions at an unprecedented level, when youth crime is at record levels, people want federal leadership on this issue, and a Dutton coalition government will bring that.
OK, we'll hear from the Federal Labor Party later in the program. We are expecting that they will say that this is a state issue. I just want to take you to something that could be in your portfolio if you are successful in a couple of weeks' time at the election. Would you bring back the sacked former Home Affairs boss Mike Pizzullo if you win on the 3rd of May?
Well, the first precondition to us appointing any public servants is that we need to win the election, and we've not yet done that. We've got work to do over the next 2 weeks to make sure we earn the trust and support of the Australian people with our plan to get our economy back on track and bring the cost of living down and make communities safe.
I'm just going to jump in. Sorry, James, but will you bring him back? And this is not something that we've just decided to talk about. Your leader is quoted in a newspaper talking about this.
No decisions have been made about any personnel issues. What I would say about Mike Pizzullo is I think he's someone who's given great service to our country, to governments of both persuasions over a long career in the public service, and he has particular insights to add on the national security challenges facing our country in an uncertain world. My view is that we can't afford to keep people like that on the bench in dangerous times. We need to find the best way to utilise them, and if we're successful at the election, we'll make sure that anyone who's got something to contribute, including Mike Pizzullo, has a role where they can contribute.
So just to confirm, you will be looking at bringing him back if you win?
Well, no decisions have been made about any personnel in any portfolios, but as I've said, I think Mike Pazula is someone who has insight and value to add to our country, and it doesn't make sense to me that someone of value like that is not being utilised adequately by the federal government.
Definitely leaning in that direction. Just lastly, the government set up an interim Centre for Disease Control and wants a permanent one next year. This is slightly outside your portfolio area, but I just want to know, would the coalition shut it down if you win the election?
Look, I don't believe we would make any decision to do that. If there's a good case for a Centre for Disease Control, then we would have it. If that's what the experts are recommending that we need to have, then that's all we'll have.
OK, there's a submission given to the Public Health Association which says that the case has not been made. That was an answer given by, apparently given by the coalition. So this is not something that the coalition has decided to scrap.
Well, I have to defer to my Shadow Minister for Health colleague, Senator Ann Ruston, but I'm not aware of any decision to scrap it. It hasn't even been established yet, as you say, and we'll look at that and take the expert advice on it. All
right, James Patterson, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thanks, James.